And welcome back, adventurers, once again to Let's Play ChäoS Head. In the last episode, Takumi Nishijo was finally brought in with his appointment with Dr. Takashina. Unfortunately, much to Takumi's disappointment, Takashina did not remember Takumi in the slightest from 4 years ago, or even before that time. But nonetheless, Takumi tried to explain everything that was going on in terms of what's been happening in the past few days, but alas, to no avail due to the fact of his, his incredible nervousness. Now, of course, Takumi was offered the opportunity to test whether or not he was actually a sleepwalker by lying on the bed in the examination room for about 3 hours, and that brings us pretty much to where we are. Now, of course, once again, the pathway of delusions is open to us, so Takumi is going to experience a positive delusion at the start, because that's how we've been going through all this time, starting with the positive delusions first. No matter what I did, the Guru photo from Shogun and the cruelly murdered body of the scene of the staking seemed about to float over my head, or into my head, sorry. And so I forcibly began picturing Sara-tan.
タッキー、外出嫌いなのに病院来るなんてすごい。
And there she is, Sara Ogle, Takumi Nishijo's magical girl waifu.
私前から思ってたんだけどさ、タッキーって実はすごく強い男の子だよね。
Well, Sara, as a fictional waifu, you seem to be the only one with that particular opinion. Sara was quite lively in my fantasies. She sang out to me in that cute voice of hers.
私、そんなタッキーの強さがすき。それに、タッキーは無遊病なんかじゃないよ。私、毎日タッキーのこと見てるもん。だからわかるんさ。
Somehow that logic doesn't really make much sense in the slightest.
三次元女になんか騙されちゃダメだぞ。タッキーには私がいるっしょ。
Unfortunately, Sara does have a point. We did allow, or rather, by we I of course mean Takumi, definitely allowed Yua to take advantage of him for her own ends.
またコンテナハウスで二人きりで過ごそうね。ボケなす。
You're so adorable, Sara-tan. Sara-tan was my ideal bride after all. No woman could surpass her. As befitting of an anime character. The third dimension, what the heck was that? I want to go home. I want to go back and have Sara-tan greet me with a smile and say, "Welcome home." Wait for me, Sara-tan. I'll be home soon, so... And something's happening.
帰らなくてもいいよ。
どういうこと？
迎えに来たから。
Her whisper by my ear sounded astonishingly real. I had the feeling she was jabbing me in the cheek. I slowly opened my eyes.
Ohayo, boke nasu.
Sara-tan was standing beside the bed. She wasn't in 1/8 scale or anything of the sort. She was life-size and she moved sleekly. I drank in a breath, pushed my body up, and tried poking Sara-tan's chest. to bounce back at me. She wasn't a figure. She was the real thing. Serotan had descended to the third dimension, but still very anime-esque.
のんのん、ここは二次元だよ。
What do you mean the second dimension? Was it really? Even though she was so soft and bouncy?
二次元的にプニプニなんさ。
I didn't get her meaning, but as long as she was bouncy, I'd be fine with anything. Speaking of which, my excessive shock had made me touch her on the chest. I suddenly became abashed. The life-size Serotan was amazingly cute, fatally moe, and real. That was why my guilt over having touched her and my fear that she would come to dislike me grew stronger. Yeah, even in his delusions,
ごめん、
Takumi's
セイラタン。
paranoia definitely is rooted in his psyche.
タッキーならいいよ。
本当？
他の人にはこんなことされるのは嫌だけどさ。特に進むとか。あいつに胸触られたら金棒で月までぶっ飛ばしちゃってる。
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that whoever Susumu is, he's probably a character from Bloodtune as well.
静かに。声出すと看護師さんたちに見つかっちゃうっしょ。
Serotan seemed concerned about what lay beyond the curtains. She's talking about Hazuki. Since of course she's still standing outside the curtain. And being careful not to make a sound, she took off her shoes and climbed up on the bed. She straddled my hips. On the verge of raising my voice again, I hastily covered my mouth with my hand. Serotan was straddling me. The panties inside her skirt were making direct contact with my crotch. Shit, my Johnson was threatening to burst out of control. Serotan brought her face closer. She smelled nice. This was Serotan's scent.
ねえねえ、タッキー。タッキーも二次元になっちゃうべきだよ。
What was she talking about?
タッキーはまだ三次元なんさ。だから私が二次元にしてあげる。
And that would be an amazing magical feat. So Takumi is going to magically become an anime character somehow.
いいっしょ。
Could she really do such a thing?
できるよ。それにすっごく気持ちいいよ。
From our surroundings, I could hear the sound of nurses busily walking around and the doctor talking to his other patients as he examined them. The space was set apart by a single curtain. If someone opened it, they'd definitely catch us in the act. My head spun with the thrill of it, not to mention the immorality of doing something like this in a hospital. Yeah, Takumi's otaku fantasies are definitely getting the better of him. On top of everything, my partner in this wanton escapade was Serotan, my current #1 favorite out of all my wives. I was sure a lucky guy. Sure you are, Takumi. I couldn't think about anything else anymore, and thus I simply nodded in answer to whatever Serotan told me.
そうこなくっちゃ。そんなタッキーが好き。
Saratan pressed her lips hard against mine. How very soft. Was this also an example of 2D softness? It felt more tender than anything in real life. My thoughts had trouble keeping up with this arrow development. It didn't occur to me to do anything of my own accord. As my eyes went wide, Saratan's tongue slipped between my lips and invaded my mouth. It was so pleasurable, my eyes threatened to go rolling around in their sockets. I had known how that kissing felt this good. I wanted a seductively stirring tongue to keep assaulting my mouth forever. I embraced Saratan's waist, but her body was flimsy because she was 2D. She was bouncy, but also thin and flimsy. So basically like a cardboard cutout, it seems. Perhaps it was like kissing a piece of paper, but it felt so amazingly good that it didn't bother me. I didn't have the room to let it bother me. Saratan was ultra hot. Saratan sucked at my tongue. I was all but on the brink of death. I couldn't endure it. It was starting to get more and more painful. The strength of Saratan's suction was downright ghastly. I tried to pull my tongue back, but I couldn't do it. She sucked at me harder. She pulled at me, to such an extent that she might tear me apart. That was a fairly ominous sign. It wasn't only my tongue. The depths of my throat were hot. My eyeballs seemed about to come flying out. I couldn't inhale. My chest ached. It felt like the inside of my stomach was being stirred to bits. She was sucking me out. Saratan was sucking out everything, every little thing inside my body. My innards, my flesh, my bones. I felt my throbbing heart come climbing out of my throat. The numerous thick veins attached to it shredded up inside me. This is the positive delusion, right? I'm pretty sure that this is. It was an unbelievable sensation. It hurt so bad, but it felt even better. So basically Takumi is now a masochist. My whole body had become one big erogenous zone. Literally my whole body. Not merely its surface. The inside of my throat, my heart, my veins, my lungs, my intestines. Having Saratan violate, suck up and devour the inside of my body made me so happy and gave me such pleasure that I almost passed out. I'd die from feeling too good. That was incredibly bizarre. Now that she'd sucked everything out of me, Saratan removed her lips from mine with a satisfied look. A mixture of blood and spit dripped from her mouth.
タッキーのすごく美味しかった。
She smiled bewitchingly. I didn't have the energy to respond. Saratan had taken everything from me. It It was the first time I had experienced such blinding pleasure, and I was utterly distracted. Fog caught at the edges of my consciousness, and my thoughts grew hazy.
ほら、タッキー、自分の体見てみて。タッキーもこれで二次元の住人だよ。
Swaying, I tried to slide off the bed and stand up. My body had become as flimsy as Saratan's. It was kind of hard to walk. Rather, I went limp and couldn't even stay standing. I collapsed soundlessly, as though to worm my way across the floor. Saratan, I can't get up. Lend me a hand. Saratan's voice reached me from up on the bed.
二次元へようこそ。
Well, that is the end of that particular delusion, which was very strange, if I do say so myself. And of course, as Takumi regains consciousness, he'll of course find himself still in the hospital area. And before we proceed any further, we're going to go back and explore the negative delusion. And if that was the positive delusion, and it was, I shudder to think what the negative delusion is going to unfold like. But we have no choice but to find out. Here we are again, with Takumi about to fall unconscious. And now it's time for the negative delusion. Joy of joys. And of course, the Guru photo that Shogun sent, and the victim of the third New Gen incident is once again threatening to overwhelm Takumi's consciousness.
タッキー、外出嫌いなのに病院来るなんてすごい。
And this is actually seems to be fairly much the same, so I'll just skip ahead. Alright, so now's the time to jump forward into the delusion. And things are probably going to get incredibly strange. When she opened the door of the examining room, the physician welcomed her with a cheerful smile. Wait a minute. She? Who is she?
今日はどうしました？
There's Takashina. She scanned the area, ignoring his question. It wasn't a very large room. There were two clipboards spread out atop the physician's desk, one holding blank white paper and the other covered with words in a foreign language. She was said to be a demon. Everyone called her that, even her parents. She no longer cared about whether she had been a demon from the very start, or whether she had become that way because it was what everyone called her. In any case, she had killed 8 people over the past month. Is Takumi hallucinating the New Gen killer? The public was in an uproar, calling it madness and what have you, but from her point of view, it wasn't an especially remarkable number. After all, she was a demon.
何か気になりますか？もし気になるものがあるなら言ってください。どかしますから。
As befitted a psychiatrist, he was very considerate towards his patients. Amused, she opened the bag she brought with her. What she slowly took out from it was... Yeah, I'm not liking this. A 24-centimeter long sashimi knife. Seeing it, the physician was rendered speechless in mid-sentence.
それとも、もっと広い部屋に変え...
Sorry, it seems to have skipped there. Seeing it, the physician was rendered speechless in mid-sentence. His expression went stiff. Picking up on his fear, she smiled tenderly. This physician would be her ninth. He wasn't her only original target, only a stop along the way. She had set her bag down and took a large, soundless stride towards the physician. She used her momentum to dive towards him, piercing him with her knife. The knife penetrating his chest slipped past his breastbone and reached his heart. The physician died with a single stab. That's an unfortunate turn of events. Already reduced to a mere object, he collapsed, toppling towards her. She supported him long enough to withdraw the knife, then shoved the object away with her elbow. And there goes Hazuki. The white doctor's coat worn by the object lying face up on the floor was turning scarlet. Drawn in by the noise, a nurse saw it and screamed. She knelt as she stepped on the doctor's body, then slashed her knife at the nurse. And now Hazuki is dead. That's, you seem to be in a very much a spot of bother. Fresh blood flew out. It wasn't fatal, but a gaping wound had been carved into the nurse's meek face. Okay, so she's still alive. Letting out a howl, the nurse curled up in place, holding her face. Vast amounts of blood overflowed from between the fingers she pressed to her wound. Ignoring this, she continued to the back of the examination room. That nurse wasn't supposed to be their 10th. It was an occasion worth celebrating. Her 10th, 2 digits. It was why it had to be her original target, just as she planned. The other patients and nurses had already started screaming and running away. It was becoming a racket. Yet their voices failed to reach her ears. She sought him out, confident of only of the fact that he was there. He, of course, being the hapless Takumi Nishijo. Her eyes stopped on a curtain. The curtain that surrounded an area about 1 or 2 tatami mats in size. There was most likely a bed inside it. He must be there. That is a very chilling thought. Her heart palpitated with joy. Her lower abdomen went hot at the thought that she would finally be able to kill him. Slowly approaching the curtain, she decided in the end to rip it apart with her knife. rather than open it normally. When she peered through the newly opened tear, he was, as expected, lying there. Found you. She lost all restraint when she saw him. She opened the curtain and stood next to the bed. Now, of course, is the proverbial moment of truth. He was sleeping with a slightly pained expression on his face. She twined her fingers in his hair and gently stroked it. He didn't wake up. She gripped the knife in both hands. Oh dear. She raised her arms on high. She was aiming for his heart. With a single blow, just like the doctor. I'll kill you. In ecstasy, she lowered the knife with all of her might. And there it is. Of course, with that killing blow, Takumi Nishijo awakens from his bizarre delusion. Right about now. But we're not going to continue on from this point. In fact, this is going to be the end of this particular episode of Let's Play ChäoS. Because when we return, adventurers, we shall see what actually happens to Takumi Nishijo when he falls asleep in this room right here. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.